So I saw this tweet and the commenter basically quoted this tweet with this family asking to see if there are any black men that have women partners that are darker than them. And at first glance, some people may think it's just a question. But when I saw this, the first thing that came to my mind was, what a strange thing to ask on a public platform and using a random family to do that. And the person who said this claims to be a light-skinned woman. I'm not sure if she means she's a light-skinned black woman or a mixed woman. And she also claims to be dating a dark-skinned man. And I can't see any pictures to confirm, but let's just believe it for the sake of the discussion here. And let's believe that she's a light-skinned black woman. Now, I'm not going to lie and say that her question just popped out of nowhere, because in the media, when we see black couples or couples that involve black men, we see that usually their wife, girlfriends, fiancés, etc. tend to be lighter than them, especially if the black man is dark-skinned. So some people could end up thinking that black men only prefer lighter skinned women or women lighter than them, which is the truth for some, but like I said, it's what we see in the media. In real life, there are plenty of black couples consisting of dark-skinned women and a dark-skinned black man, or just black couples in general of the same shade. In fact, I actually see most of the couples I see in real life tend to be of the same or similar skin tone regardless of race. Has anyone else noticed that? Which is why I find this question so weird and just a chronically online take. And I know most people are chronically online, but this is just next level. You all need to go outside and touch some grass. Seriously, there are plenty of unambiguous dark-skinned people who exist and are a product of dark-skinned people couple. And I'm one of the examples. But if we really dig deep into what this tweet meant, I think the person and the people who agreed with the tweet were actually seeking validation from black men especially. She and the rest of the people who agreed with her wanted to feel like they still had a fighting chance of being a preference for black men. And you all know I don't put any race of man on a pedestal, and I believe in centering yourself and putting yourself on a pedestal. So when I see black women hyperfixating on a man's dating preference, I'm just like, why do you care so much? Don't you see that it gives off desperate energy? Some people were saying that it's a valid question because of the issues that colorism tends to bring up. And of course, that causes black women, and I think in this case dark-skinned black women, to be sidelined and picked over lighter-skinned women as love interests. And listen, I have spoken about colorism plenty of times on my channel, and I think that it needs to be talked about more and more to raise awareness. Since it's a worldwide issue where many dark-skinned people are being discriminated against. But let me be honest with you all. In the arena of dating and sexual competition and love interests and all the things related, you can't use colorism as a way to guilt trip someone into liking you. As a matter of fact, you can't use any isms like texturism, featureism, and so on to force someone to see your value, and in this case, valuable enough to date and marry you. Acknowledging that a man has those particular traits and that influences their dating preferences is where this starts and ends. You can't control them, but the one thing you can control is whether you decide to give them the time of your day or not. Now that you've acknowledged that a lot of men who are colorists and texturists and featurists, obviously all these isms play a role into how they view you, what happens next? It's still not worth thinking and writing think pieces about. People will date and marry who they want regardless of whether you think it's discriminatory or not. Also, a man who happens to pick a lighter skinned woman as their partner doesn't necessarily mean they hate or dislike black women or just darker skinned women in general. And you can tell me about how it's rooted in anti-blackness and how people need to question their biases, but how realistic do you think that is? Asking someone to question why they like what they like, whether it has a discriminatory undertone or not, just so that you can feel validated. You are not entitled to know that information from anyone. Neither should anyone be entitled to get that information from you. You don't need to explain to other people why you like what you like. Please, guys, let's live in the real world. People who say this type of stuff sound like those insecure black men who cry and wail about black women dating outside of their race. It just screams insecurity. Many black women, unfortunately, have inferiority complexes, and that leads them to self-sabotage a lot of the time. And one of the ways they self-sabotage is by caring too much about what everyone else is doing rather than focusing on their life and making a better life for themselves, and thinking about other people's actions having a direct positive correlation with how they see black women physically. None of this will help you in your life in any way, shape, or form. What you ought to be caring about is you and your life, and making sure you center yourself and not men of any race. You need to care about making as many right decisions in your life as much as possible. Worry about picking and vetting the right man for you, because that is arguably one of, if not the biggest decision a woman makes in her life. Regardless of the race of a man, the wrong man can destroy your entire life, and you won't be able to have the thinking space to even think about what someone else is doing with their life. Black women especially, if you don't do your due diligence and end up picking the wrong man, not only are you dooming yourself into a life of misery and destruction, but if you also have children, they too will suffer the consequences because of your poor decision making, and you'll have nobody to blame but yourself. But if you do vet a man thoroughly, and you're wise and you're smart in your decision making, you can pick the right man and he can better your life immensely. So think about writing think pieces about this instead, rather than what another man is doing. And what's even more hilarious about this whole discourse is that by being so focused on someone else's life decisions and feeling entitled to know why they made those decisions, you're actually being very shallow. Like, you're only thinking skin deep. Has it ever occurred to you that amongst these black couples in which the man happens to be darker than the woman and the woman is lighter, they happen to have the same morals and values? Has it ever occurred to you that they may share similar religious views, similar cultural backgrounds? This is how I know the people who complain about these sort of things, they just want to know that they will be picked, so then they can feel better about themselves. But like I mentioned in my previous video, why would you want to be picked by men who most likely have all these isms as part of their characteristics, like featurist, texturist, colorist? Why do you want to be validated by these low value people? Even if you are their preference, how does that benefit you in any way, shape, or form? Do you gain a salary increase? Do you get more years added to your life? Does your student debt get paid off because you're the preference? See how there are actual no tangible benefits from being the preference of any type of man, regardless of race, unless you are actually gaining something in return that improves your life in some way. Never think about being the preference as a badge of honor. Anyway, those are my 2 cents in about this discourse. What do you all think about this question? Is it an actual issue that needs to be addressed and further investigated? If you think so, let me know. And if you don't think so, also let me know in the comment section down below. And I will see you in the next one.